Ready to dive into some serious real estate talk. We're tapping into the experience of Dan Shimony today.
Okay.
This guy's built a killer track record, mostly in Milwaukee, and he's been sharing his journey in these really insightful posts. They were in Hebrew originally.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And there's some absolute gold in there, especially if you're thinking about, cracking the U.S. real estate market, even coming in from overseas.
Right.
So
What's really cool about Dan's story is he doesn't shy away from the bumps in the road. He talks about this feeling of being stuck in the research phase.
yeah.
When you're just swimming in information and it feels like you need to know it all before you even think about making a move.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
It's that analysis paralysis, right?
It is. It is. You're just frozen because there are too many options, too many opinions.
Totally.
And you're just
So how do you break through that?
Well, Dan's advice is pretty straightforward. Jump into the water.
Okay.
That's the only way you're going to learn to swim.
I love that analogy. It's so true, though. You can't just dip your toes in real estate. You got to just go for it. Dive right in.
Exactly. And as intimidating as that sounds to just dive in head first, imagine you've got those really experienced swimming instructors there with you.
Oh, yeah.
Right? In real estate, that's your network.
Yeah.
These are your mentors, your agents, other investors who've been there, done that, who can guide you, share their wisdom, and honestly, help you avoid some of those costly beginner mistakes that can really set you back.
Which is exactly what Dan wishes he'd done sooner, right?
It's exactly.
He's upfront about that he didn't fully grasp this whole network thing until after his first property purchase. So he kind of learned the hard way. But that's the beauty of us diving into his story now,
Absolutely.
We get to fast track our learning from his experience.
Precisely. Time is money, right? Especially in the fast-paced world of real estate. And the sooner you can shift gears from just gathering information to actually taking action, that's what's going to set you up for success.
So true. Now, speaking of action, one of the things that really struck me from Dan's posts was his emphasis on people, on partnerships. I mean, he goes as far as to say the most important thing in real estate investment isn't location, it's people.
He's so right. Think about it this, going back to that whole swimming analogy. You wouldn't just jump into unfamiliar waters all by yourself, would you?
No way.
No. You'd want other people there with you, right?
Yeah.
Fellow swimmers, maybe a lifeguard, even a coach to give you pointers. That's what a strong network does for you in real estate.
Yeah, and Dan's not just talking the talk here, he walks the walk. He actually talks about how he built these really strong relationships with local real estate agents specifically to get access to those off-market deals, the ones that never even make it to the open market.
Exactly.
Less competition, potentially better prices. It's a smart strategy, especially when you're just starting out.
It's all about tapping into that insider knowledge, that network that those who are already established in the market have.
And it doesn't stop with the agents, right? He talks about building that reliable team, contractors, property managers, attorneys, even connecting with fellow investors. He even set up his own real estate networking event just to build those connections and foster a sense of community.
Oh, wow. That's dedication. Having that community, though, it's like having a built-in support system as you navigate the real estate world, which can be unpredictable, let's be honest.
That's for sure. Because it's not always smooth sailing, right?
And that brings us to another huge lesson from Dan's experience, one that goes beyond those spreadsheets and the numbers. It's about being prepared for the unexpected. Logistically, sure, but emotionally, too.
And sometimes that unexpected, it can be scary. Dan shares this intense story about dealing with a fire in one of his properties.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It's a harsh reminder that real estate investing comes with risks. Okay, I got to hear this story. I mean, can you imagine getting that call? Your first property engulfed in flames. The shock alone, the immediate worry about your tenants. I mean, those are human elements that hit you before you even begin to think about the money side of things.
Exactly. It's a stark reminder that, yes, real estate can be profitable, but it's not a game. You're dealing with people's homes, with real lives, and sometimes those real-life crises, they test your resilience. Big time.
So what happened? How'd Dan deal with that?
This is where all that careful planning and preparation really paid off for him. See, he'd done his due diligence, had the right insurance, all his paperwork organized, and he had built a strong, trusting relationship with his property manager. Having all of that in place, it provided a safety net when he needed it most.
That peace of mind during a crisis like that must have been invaluable.
Absolutely. It's like they say, right? Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. You're not just investing in bricks and mortar. You're investing in knowing that if or when something unexpected happens, you can handle it.
And that experience really solidified something for Dan. He said, real estate is a business of trust, not just a business of Excel.
Right. And I think that's a really important reminder because we can get so caught up in the numbers. But at its heart, real estate, it's about people. It's about building trust, building relationships, and understanding the human element behind every transaction.
100%. And speaking of understanding the why behind things, Dan's whole approach to real estate, it goes beyond crunching numbers and analyzing deals. He truly believes in taking action, even when it's scary. And he stresses making a real commitment, not just like a wishy-washy one.
Yeah. And he doesn't just talk about it. He actually made like a literal contract with himself, committing to 5 years in real estate, no matter what.
Wow.
Yeah, talk about dedication. But it's more than just a piece of paper, right? It's about setting that intention. Have you ever thought about what your real estate commitment would look like in writing?
It makes you think, right, what's your why? What are you really working towards here? Because having that clear vision, it can be incredibly powerful, especially when you hit those inevitable roadblocks and start to doubt yourself.
Absolutely. It's about defining your own version of success in real estate and having that North Star to guide you.
And Dan's not afraid to tackle those common real estate fears head on. Like he actually addresses the whole fear of market crashes, which I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate to.
Oh, big time. It's that what if I jump in at the worst possible time thing.
Yeah.
Can really trip people up.
Totally. But Dan's take on it, it's pretty refreshing, actually. He's like, instead of trying to time the market perfectly, which is, let's be real, almost impossible to do consistently.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Right. He says, focus on consistent action. Think long-term strategy.
It's that long game, you know? You ride out the dips, learn from those market shifts, and just keep making smart decisions based on your overall goals, not on, like, every little fluctuation.
It's about staying the course, even when things get a little rocky.
Exactly.
Now, on a more practical level, Dan's a huge proponent of saving first, like really building up that financial buffer before diving into any investment.
Makes sense. It's like you wouldn't build a house on a foundation of sand, right?
Yeah.
You need something solid to support it.
Exactly. And that's what Dan's advocating for here. It's about giving yourself that financial breathing room to make those calculated moves, not jumping into deals out of like desperation or FOMO.
It's about being strategic with your finances and not letting emotions drive your investment decisions.
And when it comes to being strategic, Dan doesn't mess around. He's all about efficiency, and he's actually built this whole tech stack to help him streamline his entire investing process.
Oh, interesting. I'm all about working smarter, not harder. What kind of tools are we talking about here?
So get this. He uses Northwest to simplify setting up LLCs, which is actually pretty smart from a liability standpoint.
Yeah, protecting yourself is huge. And I've heard Northwest is super user-friendly, even if you're not, like, a legal expert.
Exactly. And for his banking, he's a big fan of Mercury. It's pretty popular with investors. They've got those features specifically designed for businesses, multiple accounts, tracking transactions, all that good stuff.
It's like having a financial command center, specifically for your real estate ventures.
And get this, he uses this tool called Deal Check. So you can input property details, all your estimated expenses, and it'll analyze the deal for you. Tells you if it's worth pursuing.
That's amazing. It's like having a virtual real estate mentor right in your pocket.
And then, to get a handle on potential rental income, he uses Rentometer. Gives you all those rental data points for specific areas. It's all about removing those guessing games, right?
Data is key, especially in a market as dynamic and fast-paced as U.S. real estate.
Now, with all this talk of efficiency and strategic planning, it's easy to forget there's a human side to all of this. And Dan's actually really open about the fact that being a real estate investor, it can be an emotional roller coaster sometimes. Like, he even admits to burning out, even though his Airbnb properties were doing really well.
That's real, though. We forget that even in those numbers-driven fields, our well-being, our energy, like, it all plays a part.
Big time. And that's actually a good lesson in itself, right? What did Dan do when he recognized that burnout?
Yeah, what was his strategy there?
He decided to delegate. He actually handed off the management of his Airbnbs to a professional company, even though it meant taking a small hit on immediate profits.
And that's huge, right? Sometimes delegating, even when it means a little upfront cost, it frees you up to focus on what you're truly good at, where your energy is best spent.
Exactly. It's about that long game, building a business that's sustainable for the long haul, and prioritizing your own well-being throughout that process.
Totally. You're no good to anyone, especially in business, if you're burnt out and running on fumes.
So true. Now, there's this one story Dan tells that really exemplifies his ability to connect with people on a human level and just get their motivations. It involved this property negotiation where the seller was going through a really tough time.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So the seller was dealing with a lot. Their father, who was the original owner of the property, was terminally ill. They needed to sell the property quickly to avoid those estate tax issues, which, no one needs to be dealing with on top of grieving.
Oh, absolutely. That's a heavy situation.
Right. And Dan, to his credit, he picked up on that. He realized this wasn't just about haggling over the lowest price. It was about understanding the seller's need for a fast, smooth transaction.
It's about those human elements, the life events happening behind the scenes of those transactions. That requires a level of empathy that I think gets overlooked a lot.
For sure. And that's exactly what Dan did. He actually focused on building trust with this seller, offering reassurance. He emphasized his ability to close the deal quickly, even offering to put the money in escrow early, just as a gesture of good faith.
Wow, that speaks volumes. He was essentially saying, look, I get the pressure you're under, and I'm here to make this as easy as possible for you.
Right, and it worked. The seller was so relieved to have found a buyer who understood their situation and was willing to work with them, and they actually agreed to a price that was lower than Dan had originally hoped for.
Wow, that's incredible. It really goes to show sometimes the best deals are made not by, playing hardball, but by approaching that negotiation from a place of empathy and understanding.
Totally. It's about finding those win-win scenarios. And that's something Dan stresses a lot, understanding the why behind a seller's motivation. Is it time constraints, financial pressures, just wanting a clean, simple transaction? Taking the time to figure that out can make all the difference.
It's about shifting your mindset from, how do I get the best deal for myself, to how do we both walk away from this feeling good about it?
Exactly. And that's a much more sustainable way to approach business, especially in the long run.
Absolutely. Building those positive relationships, it goes a long way.
Now, with all this talk about strategy, action, and even that emotional intelligence, it's easy to get caught up in the real estate whirlwind. But Dan offers a really important reminder, one I think we all need to hear sometimes, especially in this fast-paced, always-on world.
Let's hear it. What's Dan's wisdom for staying grounded?
Slow down, take a step back from the day-to-day grind, and reconnect with your why, that bigger picture that drew you to real estate in the first place.
It's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and lose sight of why we started on this journey in the first place.
Totally. And Dan talks about the importance of celebrating the milestones, big or small, those little wins, they reignite that passion, right?
Absolutely. Real estate's a marathon, not a sprint. And those moments of celebration, acknowledging how far you've come, they give you that fuel to keep going when things get tough.
And speaking of those tough moments, one thing I really admire about Dan is that he's not afraid to be transparent about the things he found challenging. One area he was surprisingly candid about was property management.
Oh yeah, property management. The behind-the-scenes work that can make or break your investment, and it's often more demanding than people realize.
Totally. And he talks about how he, underestimated the time commitment, the emotional energy it takes to deal with tenants, those maintenance issues, those late-night calls when something goes wrong. It's not always as glamorous as it seems.
Not at all. There's a reason people hire out for that.
Exactly. And Dan actually tried to do it all himself at first, save money, maintain control. But it just became too much. It was taking away from his ability to focus on finding those new deals and growing his portfolio.
It's a classic entrepreneur's dilemma. You want to handle everything yourself, especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
But eventually you realize if you want to grow, if you want to scale, you got to be willing to let go.
Right. And for Dan, that meant building a team of reliable property managers he could trust to handle those day-to-day operations while he focused on the bigger picture.
It's about recognizing your strengths and then building a team that complements those strengths and allows you to focus on what you do best.
Totally. And it's not about losing control. It's about bringing in the right people to support you so you can operate at your highest level.
It's like building a well-oiled machine where all the parts work together seamlessly.
Exactly. And remember, Dan's not just all about the numbers and the strategy. He's really open about those moments of doubt, that fear of messing up big time, that pressure to succeed. You know, it's real.
Absolutely. And it's easy to think that successful people, especially in a high-stakes field like real estate, don't experience those things. But it's so important to normalize those feelings.
100%. And what did Dan say helped him through those moments? It was having that support system, people who understood the unique challenges of this world, whether it's mentors, other investors, even just friends and family who get it.
Having that support network, that circle of people who you can be real with, who can offer encouragement and advice, it's invaluable.
It really is. And Dan actually created that space for himself and others. Remember that real estate networking event he organized? He wasn't just looking for deals for himself. He was genuinely trying to build a community where investors, no matter their level of experience, could connect and learn from each other.
That's so cool. It's about paying it forward, fostering that sense of collaboration, which can be so rare in a competitive field like real estate.
Right. It's about realizing that a rising tide lifts all boats. And before we jump into some of Dan's most actionable tips for listeners, I wanted to circle back to his 5-year contract concept. It's such a powerful example of setting a clear intention and then really committing to that journey even when things get tough.
Absolutely. It's about making that conscious decision that you're all in on this real estate thing, that you're willing to put in the time and the effort to make it happen.
It's about transforming that someday I'll be a real estate investor into I am actively working towards becoming a successful real estate investor.
It's about owning that identity and then taking the steps to make it a reality.
And the beautiful thing is, it doesn't have to look exactly like Dan's journey, right? You can define what success looks like for you and then create a plan that aligns with your own goals and values.
100%. It's about finding what works for you and then having the dedication and perseverance to see it through.
And that's a recipe for success in any area of life, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's about having that growth mindset, being open to learning, adapting, and just going for it.
It's about finding that sweet spot where your passion and your purpose align, and in real estate, that's where the magic happens. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Dan's world, let's bring it back to you. If you were to write your own real estate contract today, what would your commitment be? What's that one step you could take this week to get closer to that goal?
Such a good question to end on.
Yeah.
It's like a call to action, right? Don't just sit on this information. Because knowledge without action, it's like a car without an engine. It's not going anywhere.
So true. So whether it's finally setting that savings goal or maybe checking out a local real estate meetup or even just having that conversation with a mentor you've been putting off, take that step. Because every single real estate empire, every successful portfolio out there, it all started with someone taking that first decisive action.
And the best part, there's no right way to do real estate. Your journey is going to be totally unique to you. It's all about your goals, your resources, what you envision for your future. So embrace that, learn from the folks who've done it before you, and don't be afraid to create your own path to success.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This deep dive into Dan Shimony's story, it's been a goldmine of insights, practical tips, and those inspiring reminders that real estate, it's about so much more than just properties. It's about people, it's about strategy, and it's about having that courage to take action and build the future you want to see. Until next time, happy investing.